think it kind of fits an archetype or a stereotype that like I didn't do sports. I was mostly a loner. I was like an art kid before I found hardcore, and was just kind of mostly in solitude. And then I found hardcore, and it was kind of the first time that I felt like I had a community around me, and it was really new and exciting, and I just like kind of went all in. I was in high school, and I was going to a lot of shows at like art spaces and places like the Pyramid Scheme. There were shows that like weren't big enough to go to any of those, so other local promoters would kind of send things that they didn't want to take my way because they thought I would kind of be passionate about pretty much anything, whether it was like a hardcore show, a folk punk show, a hip hop show. No matter what it was, I was just like stoked that anyone would want to drive through Michigan and play a show at my house in my bedroom. Grand Rapids historically has always been like a really cliquey scene. Even back to like the original Skeletones and DAC, it was like you were a Skeletones kid or you were a DAC kid. And ever since then, there's been different iterations. You know, there have been the house show emo kids, there have been the beatdown hardcore kids. And I kind of always had a foot in those worlds and had different friend groups within that didn't really mesh. And I think I just wanted to take myself out of the equation. So nobody felt like they had to be friends with me to go to a show that I'm booking, the way I kind of felt like I might have to be friends with someone to go to the house show that they're throwing. I grew up pretty much around the corner from here, so I had driven by this a million times, and I had thought just like riding my skateboard by in high school of like how cool it would be to have a punk or a hardcore show in this theater, but for something like 40 years it was abandoned. And then one day, I think a friend of mine sent me some pictures from in here, and he had kind of caught wind of the free space thing that I'd started, and he was like, hey, you should get in touch with this place. The first show that pops into my mind is when we had D Block here, which I think was the second show that we threw here, and so many people from around the state drove out, especially a lot of friends from Detroit drove out, at least on paper. And from the eyes of people around the country, Detroit has been like the cooler hardcore scene. Detroit had Negative Approach, Detroit had Cold as Life, and there's like a real hardcore history and lineage over there. And I feel like Grand Rapids has kind of been this like less cool younger sibling the whole time. And it just felt like such a gesture that like so many people drove hours to come to our side of the state, to visit our scene and to join up with it. And I hadn't seen that many people from different scenes around the state join up like that in a long time. It was really special. When I first like put all of this up online, like the name Free Space, and we kind of had like this motto that I just put in our bio, and I think I put it on a t-shirt or something that just said, of course you can be a punk. And both those things are taken from Ian, from one of my favorite bands, Embrace. And he said that punk is the free space. It's what you step into whenever you have a new idea, and you don't have to filter it through someone else. And for me, like growing up like in a Christian fundamentalist household, like starting to go to punk and hardcore shows was the first place where I was really presented with different ideas that ended up shaping the way I ultimately have viewed the world. It was like the first place where I was introduced to anything left of center politics. It was the first time that I made friends in the LGBTQ community. It was the first time I was introduced to reproductive rights as like something that people should have. It might sound silly, but like as a teenager, those were all like very new things to me, things that had been like kept as like evil in the context I grew up in. And if I can like give that space to other people where they can explore these different ideas about whether it's about politics or social issues or identity, things that they're figuring out about themselves, I want to just like give that platform. And then kind of the slogan or what have you of course you can be a punk. That was kind of talking about like your background and where you're from and your geography specifically. And I thought that was really fitting to Grand Rapids because of course we're not Chicago, we're not Detroit, we're not these cities with all of this like really deep lore, but we can do something because we're here.